There's a moment most of us have had. You're not doing anything important. Maybe you're walking somewhere or lying in bed before sleep. And your mind drifts back to a decision, not necessarily a dramatic one. Maybe it was a conversation you ended too soon, a city you didn't move to, a door you stood in front of and then quietly walked away from. And for a few seconds, you're not here anymore. You're in that other version of things, the one where you said yes or no, and then it passes and you're back. Most of us treat that feeling like a small malfunction, like a glitch in the system where the mind wanders somewhere it shouldn't. We might call it overthinking, or we may call it regret. We tell ourselves to let it go and move forward, because there's only one life, and it's this one, and the other roads close the moment we didn't take them. But what if they didn't close? I'm not saying this as a comforting thought or as a way to feel better about the past, but as a genuine, honest, somewhat unsettling question, one that a small number of physicists have spent serious time with. What if the other version of your life isn't a fantasy? What if it exists somewhere, not as memory, not as imagination, but as actual, unfolding reality? This is where the science starts to get strange and personal. Today, we're going to explore the multiverse, not as a movie concept or as mythology, but as a framework that some of the most respected cosmologists alive today take seriously. A framework that doesn't just describe other galaxies or distant dimensions. It describes, in its quieter implications, the structure of identity itself. The question of why you are this version of yourself and not another. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I barely know what I believe about this. What I do know is that the question matters, especially if you've ever felt the quiet weight of a life that might have gone differently. We don't usually think of our lives as a single thread. It doesn't feel that way from the inside. From the inside, it feels full of texture, of turns, of moments that mattered, and moments that quietly passed. But underneath all of that, most of us carry a hidden assumption that the life we're living is the one we built, that the person we are today is the direct result of the choices we made, and that somewhere along the way, every road not taken simply ceased to exist. That assumption is so deep, it rarely gets questioned. It just runs in the background, like something structural, like gravity. And it wouldn't be a problem, except that it has a consequence, a quiet, persistent one. Because if your life is the sum of your decisions, then every wrong turn is a subtraction. Every missed opportunity is a permanent absence. Every version of yourself that you didn't become is a loss. And you carry all of that. The relationship that ended, the career path you didn't follow, the moment you hesitated when you probably shouldn't have. They don't feel like neutral data points. They feel like evidence of a life that could have been fuller or truer or more aligned with something you were reaching for. Regret has a specific texture. It isn't the same as sadness. Sadness is about what happened. Regret is about what didn't. It lives in the space between the life you're in and the life you can almost imagine, the one that feels just close enough to hurt. And the reason it persists, the reason it doesn't just dissolve with time the way other emotions do, is because of that underlying assumption. The one that says, the other path is gone, you closed it, and you have to live inside the one that remains. But here's what I want to gently press on, not to make you feel better, but because it's actually worth examining. Where did that assumption come from? We experience time as linear. One moment follows another. Decisions seem to eliminate their alternatives. So it feels obvious, almost axiomatic, that when you choose one thing, you unchoose everything else. That reality is singular and sequential, moving in one direction, carrying only what fits inside it. But what if that's not a fact about the universe? What if it's just a fact about perception? Because there's a growing body of serious thought, not philosophy alone, but physics, that quietly suggests something different, that the alternatives don't disappear when you don't choose them, that they continue somewhere, in some form. Which means the question isn't really, what did I lose? It might be, what if nothing was ever lost at all? Here's something that doesn't get said enough about the universe. It isn't tidy. We like to think of reality as a system that selects, that out of all the things that could happen, one thing does happen, and everything else falls away. It feels that way. Every morning you wake up in one specific place, inside one specific life, with one specific history behind you. Reality seems decisive, committed, like it made a choice and stuck with it. But when you zoom out, really out, past the edge of everything we can see, the picture starts to shift. The current leading model of how the universe began suggests something quietly radical. That space didn't stop expanding after the initial moment of creation. It kept going. It's still going. And in that endless expansion, regions of space cooled and settled into separate pockets, each one effectively its own universe, sealed off from the others not by walls, but by distance so vast it becomes functionally infinite. A bubble. And then another bubble, and another, each one containing something like a cosmos. Now here's where it gets interesting. In some of those bubbles, the conditions might be almost identical to ours. Same laws of physics, same initial ingredients, just arranged differently. And if space is truly infinite, not poetically infinite, but actually infinite, then at some point the arrangements repeat. Everything that can exist does exist, somewhere. Every configuration of matter, every distribution of energy, every possible version of a galaxy, a planet, a life. What this means, if you sit with it long enough, is that the universe doesn't actually eliminate possibilities. It contains them, all of them. What changes isn't what exists, it's what you're standing inside of. Think about that for a moment, the feeling that your unchosen paths disappeared. That feeling may be a feature of your position, not a feature of reality. Like standing in one room of a vast building and assuming that because you can't see the other rooms, they must not exist. The universe in this reading isn't a decision maker. It doesn't pick one outcome and discard the rest. It's more like a field in which every outcome finds its place, its coordinates, its own unfolding. The question was never whether the other versions exist. The question, the stranger, more personal question, is why you're experiencing this one. And for that, we have to go somewhere smaller, much smaller, down past galaxies, past planets, past the visible world entirely, down to the level where reality gets genuinely uncomfortably strange. Most of us believe in some quiet, functional way that we are the authors of our lives, that when we face a decision, a real one, the kind that keeps you up at night, we are the thing that tips the scale. That free will, whatever it actually is, means that you are the force that selects one path over another. That without your choosing, the outcome would remain suspended, undecided, hovering. It's a deeply human assumption. It might also be wrong. Not because you're powerless, but because of something far stranger. Something that happens at the smallest level of reality, in a place so far below ordinary experience that it barely feels relevant. Except that it might be the most relevant thing there is. At the quantum level, the level of particles, of the raw ingredients of everything, nature doesn't behave the way we expect it to. Things don't have fixed positions or fixed states until something interacts with them. Before that moment of interaction, a particle exists in a kind of suspended plurality. Not here or there, not this or that, but genuinely, mathematically, both. All possibilities present at once, coexisting inside what physicists call a wave function, a description not of what something is, but of everything it could be. And then something touches it, measures it, entangles with it, and one outcome appears. The question that has quietly haunted physics for decades is, what happened to the others? One answer, taken seriously by a significant number of working physicists, is that they didn't disappear. They continued. Each possible outcome became real in its own branch. The wave function didn't collapse into one answer. It kept going, splitting, proliferating, carrying every outcome forward simultaneously in parallel streams of reality that never interact but never vanish. Which means that at every moment, every single moment, reality may be fracturing, quietly, completely, without asking permission. And here is where it stops being physics and starts being something more unsettling. If that's true, then you didn't choose your life so much as you became aware of one version of it. The branch you're on isn't the branch that survived. It's simply the branch that contains this awareness, this particular thread of experience. Somewhere, in whatever sense somewhere means across branching realities, Another version of you became aware of a different outcome, made a different phone call, stayed, left, said the thing you didn't say. So the question shifts. It's no longer, why did I choose this? It becomes something quieter and somehow harder to hold. What are you exactly, if not the sum of your choices? So here we are, sitting with something that doesn't resolve cleanly. If the physics is even partially right, if reality branches, if all configurations exist, if the universe doesn't eliminate possibilities but simply contains them, then something genuinely strange follows. Something that science describes the edges of but doesn't fully answer, something that might not have a fully scientific answer. Why this one? Not in a dramatic sense, but as a quiet, honest, almost technical question. If every version of your life exists somewhere in this vast, branching, infinite structure, if the you who stayed and the you who left and the you who never made it to that conversation are all real, all unfolding, all equally present in the mathematics of reality, then what exactly is doing the selecting? What determines that this awareness, the one reading these words right now, ended up here, in this particular life, on this particular branch? Physicists call it, in their language, the measurement problem. The moment a quantum system interacts with its environment, one outcome becomes the experienced one. Decoherence explains why the other branches stop interfering with each other, why they become, for all practical purposes, invisible. But it doesn't explain why experience lands here, why awareness doesn't split the way the physics does, why you don't feel yourself branching. You only ever feel one thing at a time, and that gap between what the math describes and what consciousness experiences is one of the most genuinely open questions in all of science. Some researchers have spent entire careers circling it. None have closed it, which leaves us somewhere unusual, somewhere that feels less like a conclusion and more like a threshold. What if identity isn't a fixed thing you possess? What if it's more like a position, a vantage point inside something much larger than a single life? What if the self you carry, the one with its history and its regrets and its particular texture of experience, is not the totality of what you are, but simply the resolution at which you're currently visible? A filter, maybe, not a cage. Because if that's even partially true, then the weight changes. The pressure of being this version, of having made these choices, of carrying these specific years, softens slightly. Not because the other versions are better, not because this one is incomplete, but because singularity was never the point. You were never meant to be all of it. You were meant to be the awareness inside one thread of it, fully, without apology, without the grief of everything you couldn't simultaneously be. The question isn't why you're here and not there. The question, the one worth sitting with, is what it means to be a perspective, and whether that's actually smaller than you thought, or considerably larger. We started with a familiar feeling, that quiet drift into another version of things, the life you almost lived, the door you didn't open. And underneath it, that old assumption that those paths closed, that reality chose, that you are the sum of what remained. Maybe that assumption was always too small. Not wrong exactly, just insufficient. A local truth that doesn't account for the larger structure, like assuming the room you're in is the whole building. Because if any of this holds, if reality is as vast and branching and quietly indifferent to singularity as the physics suggests, then your life is not a final version of anything. It's a perspective. One window, open and specific and genuinely yours, inside something that contains far more than any single awareness can hold. Nothing was lost, nothing was erased. The other paths didn't disappear when you didn't take them. They simply aren't the ones you're seeing from where you stand. And regret, that particular ache for the unlived life, maybe it was never really about what you missed. Maybe it was always just the feeling of being finite inside something infinite, of being one thing when everything in you suspects you contain more. You do, just not all at once. So the question we started with, why am I this version, may not need an answer so much as it needs a reframe. You are this version because this is where awareness landed, this branch, this life, this particular unfolding, And somewhere, in whatever sense that word still means anything, the others are still going. Thanks for watching.